That is where the body lies. I must return to finish my sweeping, she said. In the open casket lay the same woman who had walked him all the way. They say her ghost was never seen again. The once roamed a man whose yahoo tasted like it was churned by angels. No one ever saw him come or go. Ashumiri, a stout woman, arrived to buy things for her cousin's wedding, her eyes frozen in disbelief. In a green wrapper and torn shirt was her elder brother, the very same who had died 5 years ago. Ojong, hey God, she cried, staggering back. That man, that's Mbita, my cousin. He died 12 years ago in Osin. We buried him with our hands, oh. In the old days, when the cock crowed thrice and the moon refused to shine, the elders of Manyu would gather by the fire and whisper stories that made even brave men wet their wrappers. Ghosts, they said. Ghosts do not rise from the grave. They rise from the bark of plantain trees, shrouded in their broad leaves just before the dew falls. And they always rose with a mission unfinished or truth unspoken, alive unaccepted. As the Bayangi proverb goes, the spirit that dances with the living has not finished its song. This is the true tale of three ghosts of Manyu, restless, wandering, and unforgettable. Reverend Obasi was a fresh graduate from the seminary in Boya, sent on a 6-month missionary assignment to the village of Mbakem in Manyu. He had barely set foot in the village when news greeted him like a hammer. An elderly woman, Maanto, one of the community's oldest matriarchs, had passed that very dawn. As the tradition demanded, she would be buried before sunset. Tired of his long journey, Reverend Obasi dropped his suitcase beside the cracked cement chapel that served as the village church. As he bent to stretch, he saw an old woman sweeping the church compound with a palm frond broom. Her back was arched, her wrapper faded, but her movements were swift. "Excuse me, ma," he called politely. "Please, can you show me where Manto is being buried?" The woman stopped and gave him a tired smile. "Come, I will walk you there," she said in a raspy voice. They walked together through the red dirt path, past curious villagers who stared but said nothing. Some froze mid-step. One man dropped his firewood and ran into the bush. A child burst into tears and was hushed violently by her mother. "What is wrong with these people?" Reverend Obasi asked, but the old woman only chuckled softly and gently, looking at him dead into the eyes. As they neared the family compound, she stopped and pointed. "There, that is where the body lies. I must return to finish my sweeping," she said. "Thank you, Mama. God bless you." She turned and vanished into the path like smoke into the wind. But when Reverend Obasi entered the mourning compound, what he saw nearly knocked him off. In the open casket lay the same woman who had walked him all the way. Her body dressed in the same wrapper, her eyes were shut, her feet dusted with earth. It was Manto. Gasp filled the compound as the Reverend fell to his knees, trembling. Some women screamed when he narrated his story. One of the mourners fainted. They say her ghost was never seen again. Some whispered that she had gone for greener pastures, abandoning the journey to the afterlife and choosing instead to wander into another country, another market, another place to begin a new life. The Bayangi proverb says, "A dead rat that dances in public was sent by something deeper in the bush." And so began the legend of the restless Manyu ghost. In Fiango Market, Kumba, a place where the air carries the scent of smoked fish, crayfish, and the noise of life crashing in batter, there once roamed a man whose yahoo tasted like it was churned by angels. His name was Pa Ojong, but to the women of the market, he was simply called Papa Too Sweet Yawut. He came every morning just before the sun crowned the roofs with gold. His white flask of Yawut perched effortlessly on his bald head, and his plastic tray of gâteau balanced in hand. No one ever saw him come or go. One moment, the space beside Mama Ojong's okra table would be empty. The next moment, he would be there, smiling with teeth white as chalk, skin pale like the ashes of burnt cocoa leaves. The market women whispered that he walked like a shadow and talked like an echo. But his Yawut, sweet like first love, cold like the river water from a Yumo jug, and soft like boiled plantains. It was a sin to come to Fiango and live without tasting his Yawut. A woman who doesn't buy Papa Too Sweet Yawut will give birth to a child with sore tongue. The women laughed and joked, but the laughter never reached their eyes. One afternoon, the market hummed like a hive under the rainy season sun. Ashumiri, a stout woman from Manfe with a gap-toothed smile and a tongue that didn't fear man nor juju, arrived to buy things for her cousin's wedding. As she strode past the tomato section, she stopped mid-step, her eyes frozen in disbelief. Standing not 20 steps ahead, in a green wrapper and torn shirt, was her elder brother, Ojong, the very same who had died 5 years ago. She had wept at his grave. She had helped close the coffin. She had watched the earth swallow him whole. Yet, there he was, hawking Yawut with that same crooked smile. Mano! Ojong! Hey! Menakague! She cried and screamed. The market paused. Chickens stopped pecking. The pepper sellers froze. Pa Ojong's smile disappeared as if it had been peeled off his face. Without a word, he dropped his flask. Boah! It didn't spill. He dropped his tray. Wham! It didn't break. And then, in front of everyone, he vanished. Just like that, into thin air. A wisp of wind, and he was gone. Only the flask and the heavy bag of coins tied around his waist remained. People screamed. Women threw their Yawut to the ground. Some spat and stamped 3 times. Jesus! Men pulled off their caps and crossed themselves. People ran. The market became a chaos. Even the thieves of Fiango, those who could even steal blood from mosquito, did not touch the coins. They were afraid of what Pa Ojong might come for if they did. For 7 days and 7 nights, his flask and bag sat in the middle of the market untouched. Rain fell on it, sun roasted it, flies danced around it, but no one moved it. On the 8th day, the Kumba City Council came with gloves and prayers. They carried it away like cursed gold. One cleaner lost her mind 2 days later, seen on the street mumbling, "He's still selling, he's still selling." And from that day, every time someone tasted sweet Yawut in Kumba and couldn't tell where it came from, they would look over their shoulders. Because ghosts, like crocodiles, only need a crack to slip through. The dead that walks with the living drinks from their tears. A child who plays with a ghost will not return with his shadow. In the quiet town of Bitam, northern Gabon, the market rose with the sun, filled with the daily cries of traders hawking goods and the thick scent of roasted fish and cassava fufu. Among the many Cameroonians who had crossed borders for work, there was one man known as Uncle Benjo. He worked tirelessly at a wood mill, quiet and punctual, always arriving before others and leaving long after everyone else had gone. Nobody knew where he lived exactly, only that he always appeared from the forest path behind the plantain farm just as the rooster crowed. Some said he was a recluse, a migrant worker who avoided trouble, but those who watched closely noticed strange things. Uncle Benjo never ate in public. He never sweated no matter how the sun blazed. He didn't seem to age. Most chilling of all, he never spoke unless spoken to, and when he did, his voice was like wind through dry leaves. A man who speaks with the wind is either spirit or storm, whispered the Gabonese elders watching him from behind their kola nut stalls. Everything changed on a Tuesday market day when a Cameroonian woman named Mama Agbo came to Bitam to sell Bayangi fabric and herbs. She had fled the unrest in Manfe, the southern Cameroonian crisis, bringing with her years of knowledge from the old village and a sharp tongue feared by many. That morning, as she laid out her fabrics in the market, her eyes caught sight of a man holding a log that passed the stalls. Her scream tore through the morning like a machete through plantain leaves. "Hey God!" she cried, staggering back. That man, that's Mbita, my cousin. But Mbi died. He died 12 years ago in Osin. We buried him with our hands, so..." A hush fell over the market. People stared at the man she pointed to, Uncle Benjo, the ghost in flesh. He froze, their eyes met, and for a split second his face twitched. Then, as if the forest itself had swallowed him, he vanished behind the stalls and into the plantain groves beyond the mill. No one saw him again. That night, the village was heavy with fear. The old Bayangi stories resurfaced like bubbles from a dark swamp. When a spirit flees the grave, it hides in the smell of foreign earth. The next morning, the plantain grove was found crushed. The ground was littered with shriveled leaves. In the middle of the clearing where the ghost had vanished stood 7 pebbles in a perfect circle, an old sign among the Bayangi people: the dead are not gone. Workers at the mill reported hearing strange sounds every evening from the forest path chains dragging, drums beating with no hands, voices speaking in broken dialect from behind the leaves. Some fled, some stayed and never returned home. Mama Agbo refused to leave Gabon. Instead, she sent a message back to Manyu warning her people. "He was one of us, but he walks no more in flesh. He is one of the Etambas Abong the restless. His soul refuses to sleep." Among the Manyu, elders say that not all who die rest. It was once believed that ghosts first appeared from behind the trunks of plantain trees covered in their massive green leaves. That's why in some villages, no one plants banana trees near their homes, for fear that the spirits will perch there at midnight to weep. They say the first wandering ghost emerged the year the first gunshot was fired during colonial invasion. That soul, angered by death it didn't understand, refused to journey to the ancestral realm. Instead, it stood behind a plantain tree, its eyes glowing like coals, watching as generations passed until it learned to walk amongst the living again. Since then, every village in Manyu has had at least one spirit who walks, talks, and treats like the living, but is not. Some sell yaourt, some sweep the church compound, some walk in the Gabonese lumber yards, some may even be sitting next to you. A tree without roots may still stand, but it drinks nothing from the earth. A person without a soul may walk, but they live only to confuse the living. As the story spread across Cameroon, whispered between teeth in beer parlors, murmured in dusty classrooms, spoken in Ao by firelight in village squares, the conclusion is always the same. In every town in Cameroon, there are at least 2 people who are no longer alive, yet they walk amongst us. Maybe you've met one, maybe you've bought their yaourt, maybe you've borrowed salt from their house, maybe you've watched them vanish down the road you cannot follow. So next time you are out at midnight and you feel eyes watching you from behind a plantain tree, or you see someone you know is dead walking with a heavy flask on their head, don't ask questions. The spirit of Manyu do not like to be questioned. They only like to wonder.
Please subscribe to watch more of our videos. Thank you.